Good evening, and thank you for joining our very first compliance webinar. My name is Rocky Wiles. I am the Division Chief of the Compliance and Enforcement Division at the Department of Cannabis Regulation. Our division became fully staffed in 2023, and we proudly launched our compliance inspection program this February, which is subject of today's webinar. I want to start by expressing my heartfelt thanks to Michelle Garakian, our Executive Director, whose vision in achieving compliance through education paired with progressive enforcement methods have truly shaped our approach to compliance. Under her leadership, the compliance program focuses on education and outreach as the foundation of this program, rather than just punitive measures. Today's webinar is a good example of her commitment to outreach and education, preparing our operators for success. And as part of our ongoing effort to support you, we will be scheduling future webinars to continue to share valuable information and updates related to the operational permit process. So stay tuned. Today, of course, for those operators who do not comply or attempt to comply with the rules and regulations, we do have tools like hefty fines, suspensions, and revocations, and revocation proceedings at our disposal to achieve compliance. Also, I want to quickly give a big shout out to my incredible team, three of my team members are going to be joining this webinar today. I'm sure many of you have already met some of our compliance analysts and can attest to their responsiveness, their thoroughness, and professionalism. I am very proud to lead this team of individuals. DCR's Compliance and Enforcement Division is an essential part of ensuring the integrity and safety of the cannabis industry. We are responsible for conducting annual compliance inspections to make sure that all licensed cannabis businesses adhere to the established regulations. Additionally, our division will be conducting final inspections, which are the mandatory inspections before the issuance of an operating permit in the annual licensing process. Those of you who have gone through a compliance inspection with my team are ahead of the rest because you already know exactly what and how staff will be inspecting your business. And so now you can really prepare for that final inspection. But beyond inspections, our division is also tasked with investigating complaints from the public and other agencies. When necessary, we do take enforcement actions with associated fines to address egregious or recurring violators in order to maintain a fair and lawful market. Next slide, please. Okay, so today we have an informative session planned for you, focusing on our compliance inspection program. We will be covering the following topics on your screen: compliance with operational requirements. We will discuss the essential operational requirements that every licensed cannabis business must follow, including the attestation related to adhering to the operational requirements, specifically regulation number 5, the rules and regs. We will then cover the self-assessment checklist and also go through some of these common deficiencies that staff has found when we carry our compliance inspections. We will cover the assessment checklist. This is a valuable tool for businesses to gauge their level of compliance and assess the cost for non-compliance. Hector will be covering this section. He will also highlight, as I mentioned earlier, common deficiencies found during our inspections. He will also talk about violation types. He'll cover the different types of violations and their associated fine amount, so you can understand the potential issues and what would that cost you. He will go over the appointment notification, or I believe that's going to be Aaron who's going to be going over the appointment notification. So they will explain the process of the inspection appointment notification, so you know what to expect and when your inspection will be scheduled. And then Fred and our staff will go over the basically the overview of the inspection process. He will provide a detailed overview of what happens during an inspection from start to finish, outside and inside. And then finally, we'll have some time for Q&A. We've received quite a few questions already, so we were going to try to go over those. If there's anything that we don't know the answer to, or we don't get to answer here today, we will go ahead and take those questions and post the answers on our website in the next week or so. So hopefully I didn't miss anything. I'll be around for questions at the end. Now I am going to turn this over to my uh, supervisor for Hector Alican. He is the senior management analyst that oversees the day-to-day operations of the compliance team. So I'm gonna kick it over to you, Hector.
Thank you for the kind words, Rocky. Welcome, everybody. Hector Alican, Senior Management Analyst. Aaron, can we progress the slides to compliance with operational requirements? Thank you. We will be discussing compliance with operational requirements. Next slide, please. While all retail stores must go through a compliance inspection, not all licensed retailers will have one completed prior to the CRC scheduled meetings due to staff availability. However, it is imperative that all licensed retailers and retail staff are trained and prepared for a compliance inspection. All licensed retailers must comply with Regulation Number 5, Operational Requirements and Violations. If a compliance inspection is completed prior to the CRC, the staff report will reflect any deficiencies found and the status of compliance. Next slide, please. Please note that this form requires the following information. The Attestation Enforcement 3003 form, license attestation, requires the legal entity name, the business premises location, legal business entity record, beginning date of operations, and signatures from a sufficient number of legal owners to constitute majority ownership in the business entity. This attestation must be submitted within 30 days from the date a licensed entity begins operations. Owner and personnel declare they have received, read, and understand all applicable operational regulations described in the rules and regulations. Please be mindful that the rules and regulations should be handed out to your management staff and ownership so they are well aware of the rules and regs number 5. Thank you. The self-assessment checklist and common deficiencies. Now we'll get into the self-assessment checklist and areas we most commonly see violations during compliance inspections. The self-assessment checklist and common deficiencies. Next slide, please. Prior to the inspection, DCR strongly recommends that you go through the self-assessment checklist to identify and rectify any deficiencies. This checklist is provided to inform you about what DCR will inspect so that businesses can comply and mitigate any potential fines. It is provided as a courtesy, and any self-inspection is optional but highly encouraged. You are not required to complete the checklist, and it does not need to be returned to DCR. As you've seen, next slide. As you've seen in our examples, we mentioned different violation types. So now we'll get into a little bit more detail. Failing to adhere to the standards of your compliance inspection may result in violations and subsequently fines. Here are some examples of minor, moderate, and major violations. As you can see, these fines can be quite pricey, so it is important to be well prepared for your compliance inspection as to avoid this. For example, a minor violation is assessed a fine of $7,006. Moderate is $21,013. Major is $42,026. As you can see, underneath each one of those violation types are common examples of some violations. There are a large number of other violations that are assessed these types, but they are on the self-assessment checklist. And we'll go over that shortly. Next slide. Not all deficiencies will result in a fine, but rather a notice to correct, which carries no penalties. However, you will be given a deadline to correct and meet compliance requirements that, if not met, will lead to a notice of violation, which does carry fines. The self-assessment checklist contains additional information about compliance fines associated with a potential notice of violation that will otherwise be issued by DCR if corrective action is not taken. Notice to correct versus a notice of violation. Most deficiencies may be handled by the issuance of a notice to correct, which carries no penalties. However, a notice to correct will set a deadline for compliance. If compliance is not met by the deadline, DCR may issue a notice of violation, NOV, which includes fines for noncompliance. Use a self-assessment checklist to estimate the amount of noncompliance fines associated with the potential NOV that will otherwise be issued by DCR if corrective action is not taken. The self-assessment checklist is a tool. Aaron, can you click on the self-assessment checklist for me so we can show the attendees? Thank you. So given the time restraints, we're not going to go over the entire self-assessment checklist. However, we're going to go directly to page 22, which gives examples of delivery requirements. So when we're going to the self-assessment checklist, as you can see, these are the requirements for the delivery activity. And some of the most common deficiencies our compliance inspectors find is identified in number 4, which is having the age verification device along with the specifications. So when those are one of the questions we ask the operators. Do you have an age verification device? Confirm to us and also provide the specifications. Oftentimes this is not provided. So in utilizing the self-assessment checklist, you would just click a number 1 or check a number 1 in that orange box there. Moving forward onto number 6 is another common deficiency that we identify. And that's a deficiency related to the global positioning system, the GPS system device. This is a common deficiency we find as people may be using personal cell phones or personal tablets in their vehicles, or the GPS system is not permanently affixed or temporarily affixed to the vehicle. So when we go out there and identify that, that would be a common deficiency as well. Doing this self-assessment checklist, you would just check a number 1 there, and then move on through your self-assessment inspection of your business premises. One of the other common deficiencies is number 8, which is registering the vehicles with our department. Once you register that, you would get a delivery vehicle placard to place in your vehicle. This is a common deficiency that operators fail to complete. So if this is one of the items you see during your self-assessment, you would just add a number 1 there and then move on. Number 13 is also another common deficiency that our compliance inspectors identify. And this is, oh, I'm sorry, let me retrace that. This is something just to make note of for anybody that's doing delivery only. This is an activity that is prohibited. Does your business conduct prohibited activities such as allowing customers to place delivery orders at your business premises, including but not limited to through the use of device such as mobile devices? So if you have a delivery only, please be mindful the public is not supposed to be inside. You're not supposed to have sales at that property or at that location. So these are just items to be aware of regarding the prohibited access or prohibited activities. Those are the items 14, 15, and going forward on that. So those are good prohibited activities to take a look at. Make sure you're not conducting any of those. So as we get to the next page, it has a running total that you can tally up your totals. And as you can see, it's going to have the violation types: minor violation, moderate violation, and major violation. From the violations that we listed, we had 1 moderate that we identified, which has a total of $21,013. We had 2 major that have a total dollar amount of $21,013. So we would just add that up. The 2 majors would come out to be a total of $42,026, and the minor would be, and the minor would be $7,006. So putting in total, you would just add up those totals to get your grand assessment or your personal assessments of your properties. This can be a great tool to utilize for your management and staff to understand the assessed values per violation for each section of your business premises.
Hector, sorry to interrupt. Just to clarify, the It was two major violations. Each major violation is $42,026. So if you have two major violations, that would have been, close to 84,000 and change.
Yeah,
So it's 84,000, right?
you are
Plus the
correct.
seven. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're adding up the totals, if you have two that come out to major violations, you would just times that by two, which would be $84,052. There's one moderate violation here is $21,013. So the grand total would be $100,005.65 and $105.65, $105,065. So that just keep in mind these self-assessments. This just gives you an idea of the total dollar amounts, how easily and how fast it can add up if you're not conducting your location or understanding the requirements and the rules and regs. So this is just a quick rundown of the self-assessment checklist and how to utilize it as a tool during your self-assessment and inspection inspection of your business. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Washington, and I'm one of the compliance analysts that may come out to your property to do your compliance inspection. Now we will discuss what happens once you have been given an appointment notification. Next slide, please. Appointment notification. A DCR analyst will notify the business 48 hours in advance when a compliance inspection will occur. We recommend that you keep the provided appointment to your inspection date. Due to the hearing for your CRC meeting will remain the same. You may request a different date if necessary. Next slide, please. Now I will do the overview of the inspection process. Next slide, please. When DCR inspectors come to the business premises, they will first do an overview of the exterior of the business. Specifically, they will check the property maintenance, such as signage, lighting, cameras, ambient odors, and loitering. Next slide, please. Here is an example of things we will check. We would note any graffiti. We would note any lighting, any cameras, alarm system, cleanliness, among other items. The business premises should be free from graffiti, removed within 72 hours of occurrence. The property and surrounding areas of the business should be well maintained and clear of any litter or debris. Next slide, please. Can you do one more, please, as well? Thank you. In order to protect the community surrounding the business, there are a few rules about trash pickup. The trash pickup activities are limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays. There shall be no trash pickup that are allowed on Sundays. Next slide, please. Lighting should follow these guidelines. All businesses should be well lit, starting at dusk, in order to be able to see faces and clothing of people utilizing the space. Please note the lighting should be either partly shielded or fully shielded, as in the picture shown here. Next slide, please. Ventilation systems are required on businesses and must be kept up to code to ensure cannabis odors are kept from surrounding areas. Operable windows or vents should not be kept next to residential use or zoning, and exhaust residential use or zonings, and exhaust must be directed away from residential areas. Ventilation equipment must also be screened from the public view if they're on rooftops. Next slide, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Fred Ely, and I want to thank Aaron for his great overview. We're going to take a look inside the businesses now and kind of give you guys an idea of what some of our expectations are inside the premises. Okay, next slide. The business premises has a digital video surveillance system with a minimum camera resolution of 1280 by 720 pixels. with each camera permanently mounted in a fixed location. Video surveillance cameras that record 24 hours per day. The storage device for the recordings is secured in a manner to prevent tampering or theft. Surveillance recordings are kept for a minimum of 90 days. Often when we go out to the spots, these are things that we're looking for as we're checking out your surveillance system. Next slide, please. All entrances and exits to the business premises are recorded by the video surveillance systems from both the indoor and outdoor vantage points. That's something that's important to be noted. All limited access areas, including security rooms, areas of storage, are recorded by the video surveillance system for both interior and exterior. If applicable, point of sale areas and areas where cannabis goods are displayed for sales are recorded by the video surveillance system. One thing I'd like to note is that you must be able to get the point of sales clerk, the bud tender, or your person doing the sales. We need to be able to see their face as well as the person making the purchase, right? So we want to see both faces during the sale. Next slide, please. Okay. Here you have a display of license. This display of license is something that's important for us, as this is one of the main things that we're looking at. So a licensee shall prominently display any license, state license, BTRC, emblem cards, emblem placard, designated neighborhood liaison signs. That's something important that we definitely want to see at the sites, including the phone number and email address to receive complaints, and emergency contact information on the licensed business premises where it can be viewed by state and local agencies. Something that we want to note for this slide is that the neighborhood liaison has to match what's in your Acela link. So make sure you're checking your Acela when you're labeling the neighborhood liaison. Next slide, please. Identification of employees. This is something that's extremely easy for us to recognize right off the bat when we walk into your facility. So this is something that we want to highlight. All agents, officers, or other persons acting for or employed by a licensee shall display an identification badge at all times while conducting business operations. This should include licensee's business entity name or DBA, DCR core record number. And the core number, if you're looking here, it says record number LA-R-24. The 0000 number, that is your core number, people. So moving forward, if you have a badge, you can place that core record number on that badge. Employee's first name, employee ID number, and a color photograph that clearly shows the front of the employee's face and is at least 1 inch width and 1 inch in height, 1.5 inches in height. Thank you guys so much. Let me get the next slide. Okay, now this Bureau of Investigation, this is only for display, right? This is not an actual permit. But security personnel, all licensees with on-site retail sales shall hire or contract security personnel licensed by the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services to provide security services for the business premises. During operating hours, security personnel shall be at least 21 years of age. Next slide, please. Security plans. This is something that's extremely important, and we're going to be reviewing once we get on site. So a licensee shall develop and implement a written security plan. There must be a functioning alarm system, which is permitted by the Los Angeles Police Department. That's important, guys. The alarm system, which is permitted by Los Angeles Police Department, and alarm information is provided upon request if not displayed. If you display this, this should be in the main section with your BTRCs and everything else. We want to see this LAPD permit right on site. The licensee has procedures in place to notify DCR in writing of a criminal conviction rendered against the licensee, either by mail or electronic mail within 48 hours of the conviction. Remember, I know some of you guys are doing things on like inner office customs, but we want to see that in writing. Okay, so next slide. Okay, code of conduct. A licensee shall be responsible for monitoring employee and customer conduct at their business premises and other areas which customers or employees frequent, including parking areas. Employee and customer conduct at the business premises shall not adversely affect or detract from the quality of life for nearby residents, property owners, and businesses. A licensee shall also discourage illegal activity, criminal conduct, nuisance activity, and loitering on the business premises. A lot of you have employee codes of conduct within some portion of your business, but we're also looking for patron codes of conduct, and we'd like to see that displayed in a prominent position within the facility. So let's not forget the patron code of conduct. Next slide. Okay, this is a great slide here. Business premises diagrams. DCR may require that the applicant or licensee update or correct the business premises diagram submitted with the application by issuing business premises diagram correction sheet. The diagram must include a clearly marked entry and exit and an up-to-date floor plan that reflects the current layout of the business. Here goes a great opportunity to kind of highlight a business premises diagram. So you guys can see the business premises diagram right here that we've inlaid. As you can see, it has a clearly marked entry, clearly marked exit, but it's missing a couple things, right? It's missing clearly marked cameras, right? So if this was a business premises diagram, I'd want to see cameras numbered or marked in some kind of way that we're identifying it. I also want to make sure that the rooms that we have are clearly marked. A room may have started off as an office, but then turned into a limited access room. And we want to make sure that that's accurately reflected within our business premises diagram that we have on file. So make sure, so today go home and check and make sure that the business premises diagram that we have in your Acela account matches what you guys actually have. Let me get the next slide, please. Okay, I think that brings it to the end. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Fred. That was a good job. Good job. Thank you, Erin and Hector. Yes, so we're going to start with questions. We're going to go over the questions that have been submitted. If we have time, we will go over questions that are submitted during the during this webinar. Also, just want to remind you guys that we are trying to focus on compliance rather than licensing questions. So we will be prioritizing questions dealing with compliance inspections. And we can, any questions about licensing, we can also forward to our licensing section, and they can post those answers online if we can't get to them today. All right, Gidget, I'm gonna let you go ahead and start choosing some questions.
Good deal. Thank you, Rocky. Our first question comes from Philip A. And he asks, is there a fee associated with the compliance inspection?
So there is a fee that is associated with the compliance inspection, but it is worked into the application fee and the renewal fee. So you're not paying an additional fee for our compliance inspections. However, if we have to get out there one or more times above and beyond the one inspection, we may have to charge you for that inspection. Right now, standard inspection is approximately, I want to say, like $2,500. We are looking at our fee schedules, and so those fees might change in the near future. But just to answer your question, there is a fee, but you don't have to pay it separately. It's already worked into the fees that you already pay.
Thanks, Rocky. This next question also comes from Philip A. When will the business entity know the results of the inspection?
So the goal is ultimately to get these NTCs out within a week, maybe sooner. So that's our goal. Right now, we don't have a lot of resources. We're working against the clock with commissions, so we get them out within a week or two at the most. But our goal is to close that gap so that we can actually issue the NTCs within a week after the inspection.
Okay, moving on from Rob M. Is there a site plan review during the process?
Well, there's no site plan review is a term used by the planning department, and that's a planning department function. So no, DCR does not do site plan review.
Next question from Joshua M. How long will the average inspection take?
Well, there's a lot of factors that play into this. How big your facility is, how well prepared the operator is. So if you have a big facility, in a perfect world, if you have the people with the knowledge to meet with my staff, and they have to have knowledge of metrics, somebody who has knowledge of the security system, and how to navigate it. So when staff asks, okay, show me how, this device stores up to 90 days, that person should be able to show that right away. So if you are prepared, if you have the documents, financial documents, employee training documents, then it should be fast. I think that the shortest it would take probably an hour, but staff has been out there for a couple hours if somebody's not prepared. A couple of folks will be out there doing the inspection. Normally, one will be, doing outside. Somebody will be inside. We really try to be efficient and divide and conquer. So, again, it's up to you. If you want us out of there fast, be prepared. Next question.
Sure. This one comes from Frank D. Is it legal to go completely digital, or do we have to keep physical copies?
As long as they can be readily and easily available for inspection, it's okay to be digital. The state code basically just says that the records have to be produced for the department, either hard copy or an electronic form. And if you do store hard copies, they have to be secure so that they don't, get moisture or become contaminated or stolen. So you have to make sure that you secure those documents. So digital is absolutely fine.
Okay, our next question from Jamie M. Can delivery services be from any registered vehicle?
I don't know what you mean from any registered vehicle, but the vehicles that are used for delivery have to be that information has to be provided to DCR in the CED 3007 DVP form, which basically requires you to give us the names of all the employees that are delivery employees, and also the vehicles that your company uses for delivery. So we have to have the license plate of every single car and all the employees that are doing delivery. And once we have all that information, we prepare a placard that we send to you. And whether you have 1 or 5 vehicles in your fleet, you have to have this placard in your car during business hours.
Frank D. asks, how long are we supposed to keep invoices and COAs?
7 years is the golden rule, the standard.
Question from Michael R. What is the most common compliance issue found at cannabis companies?
I think that staff already kind of went over some of those deficiencies. Fred or Aaron, do you want to take that? Do you want to talk about what are the most common deficiencies that you find out there?
One of the most common deficiencies that I find if you're offering delivery, then I think we discussed earlier that GPS was an issue with delivery, ID verification, something electronic ID verification was an issue. If you're talking about like in the store, then oftentimes what you'll fall into is like a security plan not being fully vetted out, not including contacting DCR regarding some of these other things that we discussed earlier. Yeah, it just depends on the location, depends on the most common things though, but yeah, that's some of them.
I will
You know,
also say visitor logs versus limited access logs. There's two separate logs that should be maintained in each business. A visitor log should be kept at the front desk for all visitors that are non-employees of the business. A limited access log should be kept in all limited access areas that anybody that's not an employee that's going to be going to. So, for example, if you have a restroom or if your IT equipment is kept in a limited access area, you, your plumber or your IT repair person first needs to sign in at your visitor log at the front desk. And any limited access areas that this plumber or IT guy is going in as well needs to sign into those limited access areas as well. So very important that you guys have two logs on site, a visitor log at the front desk and a limited access log behind any limited access area. Back to you, Rocky.
thank you, Erin. Yeah, that's in reviewing some of these notices that go out, I do see that as one of the most common deficiencies. Yeah, it's the logs, it's not having, not keeping track of who's going where. So that is a good one to bring up. And also the DBA, it seems like a lot of folks don't know that they have to register with the county and then register with us to make sure that DBA is available.
And last but not least, that core record number, that DCR core record number on their badges.
Okay, great. From Alexis L. Do renewals need inspections?
So it's not the renewal that needs the inspection, but every year the code requires that we do an annual inspection. So whether you're a new applicant with a brand new application or you're renewed in your existing application, the code requires that we do one annual inspection, if not two per year.
Okay, thank you. Our next question comes from two individuals, Alexis L. and Christina G. Will inspections be on-site or virtual?
Our inspections are on-site, in person, and yeah, they'll meet you and your staff, so not virtual. Re-inspections, sometimes if there's a deficiency that we can verify online, like virtually, we will do that. We won't go out there. So there are times when we will have to get back out there, if we have to check the business premises diagram, but for verification, we can do those virtually most of the time.
Thank you. Our next question from Joey D. Can we get a copy of the inspection guidelines?
So we have the self-assessment checklist, and if you look at also the operational requirements in regulation number 5, those are good guidelines for what you're supposed to comply with. But just look at the self-assessment checklist and at the different sections, and the way that we prepare that document is basically the regulations, but it's in a way that you can, it's asking you the questions, see if you comply. And actually, when folks here use that, I mean, I'd like to hear back to see if it's something that's helpful, any suggestions on, how we can improve it or any other ideas. I'm open to hearing them.
Thanks, Rocky. I just wanted to note that staff has left links to the checklist and regulation number 5 in the chat. So if they want to click on those links. Next question from Genevieve T. How much notice is given before the inspection is scheduled?
So right now we have limited staffing, and we're trying to get to the locations that have complaints, and we're trying to do that, before we get to commission, so we can give them a report on the status of compliance for some of these locations. You might get, if you're lucky, you might get 3 to 4 days advance notice, but there are times when we have a lot of different locations that we have to inspect, so you might get a day, you might get just 24 hours, but we know that it takes time to prepare, so we will do our best to give you at least 48 hours before we get out there, but just bear with us until we get our program underway, and we get a few more. We're expecting to hire a few more analysts, so hopefully we'll have a little more capacity, and we'll be able to give you more notice before these inspections.
Our next question comes from Joanne D. What is the effect of not correcting out of compliance factors?
So the notice to correct, or NTC, will escalate to a notice of violation. And as Hector explained, those notices do carry heavy fines, which can then escalate to a notice of suspension and end up in a revocation of your license. So, please do comply with our notice to correct. Once we issue a notice of violation, you are responsible for those fines. Even if you decide to abandon or withdraw your application, those fines have been assessed, and therefore they're owed by you. So your goal should be to stay within the world of, an NTC, a notice to correct. We will work with you to get you to compliance. If you can't comply within the 30 days that we allow, then reach out to your compliance analyst. We do have a form where you can request an extension to comply. We just need to know exactly what you're going to do when. Give us some milestones so we know that you're working towards compliance. But please do mind those notices, because you don't want to be hit with a notice violation.
Thank you, Rocky. Our next question also comes from Joanne D. Do community complaints regarding non-compliance of rules trigger an in-person inspection?
Well, like I said earlier, all our inspections, our compliance inspections, are in person. So whether there is a complaint or not, if we do an inspection of a location, it's in person. We don't just inspect the locations with complaints. We also randomly select other locations, so that, because eventually everybody has to have this inspection. So it really doesn't matter if you have a complaint or not. You will be inspected at some point. We are doing the ones with complaints because those are the ones that we want to report on to the CRC.
Our next question comes from two individuals, Paola D. and Victor G. How often does DCR do inspections?
Well, there are different inspections. So the licensing team does an initial inspection, and I believe that they do that virtually. That's at the very beginning, and that's part of the temporary approval process. So that's one inspection. The Compliance and Enforcement Division, we do the compliance inspections, which is basically the annual inspection required in the code. And then once you're ready to get your operating permit, we will then conduct the final inspection. The final inspection is basically triggered by the operator requesting it, meaning that you'll tell us when you're ready for that final inspection, because you have to have your health department permit, your building permit or CO from Building and Safety. You have to have your annual license, issued from the CRC. And then we'll conduct our final inspection, and then you get your operating permit. That final inspection is something that is requested by the operator when they're ready to get that operating permit.
Nicholas J. asks, is the fire department involved in the inspection?
No, they're not involved in DCR inspections. They do their own inspections. And they have, they have their own inspections in conjunction with their permits, which typically are permits for, manufacturing, for extraction equipment. So they'll issue the permit and they'll do their own inspection. I do want to mention though that other agencies like the fire department, sanitation, in fact, industrial waste management division, they're the folks that are in charge of industrial waste. Office of Finance all have authority under our regulations to conduct their own inspections. And if they show up at your facility and they want to do an inspection, our regulations require that you do allow them to do an inspection. If you don't and they contact us, you can be subject to a fine for not letting these other folks in. And we have, there are times when I've contacted some of the operators when they don't want to let the fire department in, and it doesn't. These guys are there, for life safety issues. So I would suggest that if they show up, please do let them in.
Nicholas J. asks, how is this inspection different from what the DCC would require?
Well, DCR basically mirror DCC's regulations. So in some cases, we might be more conservative. DCR, we have our own forms. So please make sure that you are aware of the requirements, from both DCC and DCR. Sometimes you can use the same documents that you submit to them. You can use the same one to submit to us. But you do have to comply with both state requirements and local requirements.
Robin M., are all inspections pop-ins or can or will they be scheduled?
Compliance inspections are scheduled, so we do reach out. We try to give you as much advance notice as we can, but sometimes, like I just mentioned, it might be just a day. We have the authority to go in anytime. We don't have to, let you guys know. This program, the compliance inspections, we are scheduling them, and you will know when we're going to come and conduct that inspection. So please make sure that you have your contacts updated in your Estella record with the correct emails, so that you get our emails when we're trying to reach out to you.
Thank you, Rocky. Our next question comes from two individuals, Robin M. And Jennifer D. What are the specifications for warnings, if any?
So the results from the compliance inspection will be memorialized in the NTC, in the notice to correct on most occasions. No fines are included unless, of course, there's a failure to comply after sufficient notice. So yeah, please refer to regulation number 5. So in those regulations, the violation type is included in each of those regulations, so you will know what that fine will be. As far as warnings, when we do the compliance inspection, you get the NTC. You can consider that a warning. If you don't comply, then it escalates. So I just want to say, for when my guys are out there doing these inspections, we are working with you. I don't, we want to help you comply. We're hoping that this webinar has given you guys some basic, understanding of how we operate to help ensure that you guys pass the inspection, or if you don't pass initially, that your deficiencies are, minor. Staff will meet with you after the inspection and go over the deficiencies. They are not going to tell you exactly how to comply. They'll tell you what the finding is, what is it that you're not that you're doing incorrectly, and they'll tell you, what you basically how to correct it, right? So if you are missing the core number from the employee IDs, you have to make sure that you reprint those IDs and include that core number. So, my staff is out there trying to educate and help. So please reach out to them, and we'll get you past. Where there's a will, there's a way. You just have to, make sure that you keep in touch and, don't ghost my people. Answer their emails.
Okay. From Jorge B. What happens if we are not operational?
Well, if you're not operational, just let the licensing team know as soon as possible, please. If you're not operating, we're not going to conduct a compliance inspection. So, just let us know and let the licensing team know as well.
This is a follow-up question from Jorge B. Will we be given, let me try that again. We will be given time to rectify any issues that might come up during inspection.
Yes, DCR and regulations allow for 30 days to rectify any deficiencies from the time that the NTC is issued. If you need more than 30 days to comply with the NTC, you may request an extension of time, like I just mentioned. So please make sure that you state the reason on that form that you need the extension, and there's no fee for that extension.
A question from Tim M. How long does it take after paying the annual application invoice for the inspection to take place?
So we're conducting compliance inspections based on the locations that are going to the Cannabis Regulation Commission. So, and notices are sent about those hearings well in advance. I think that they're sent at least a couple of months before the hearing. So if you've received any of those notices and when your hearing is, you can expect that you're going to have a compliance inspection in the near future. But every one of our retail locations will get an inspection this year. That's the goal.
This question comes from two individuals.
I'm sorry, Gidget, let me just clarify, and that's for retail facilities right now.
Got it.
Okay.
Next question comes from two individuals, Tim M. and Jeremy A. If inspections fail, what are the options available to remedy the issues?
You got to pass. That's your option. It really depends on the deficiency. Most deficiencies can be corrected. So, but, there is we haven't failed anybody so far. There's folks that have to do a little more, maybe they need a little more time, but everybody should be able to comply with our regulations. And if there's some challenges, please reach out to your analyst and we'll try to figure out how to get you to compliance. But if you don't comply with the regulations and you don't reach out to us, then we have to, elevate this to the next action, which would be a notice of violation.
Our next question comes from Melvora C. Is it possible for retail stores to keep digital files instead of physical files?
Oh, I think we answered this question earlier. The answer is yes. As long as you're able to secure and store these files for at least 7 years, then the answer is yes.
Thank you. From John L. After inspections, what can applicants expect to happen?
Well, after the inspection, you'll get the notice to correct, which will list the regulation that was violated. It'll list, the finding from staff and corrective action. And it'll give you, 30 days to comply. So what I would do is, start as soon as the compliance analyst leaves. You can start gathering that information. You don't have to wait to receive the NTC because they do meet with you. They don't always, sometimes when they get back to the office, sometimes they want to meet with me or Hector, and we find that maybe, there's an additional violation that, maybe that they didn't catch that we have to add on the notice to correct. But most of the time, they will go through every one of the deficiencies that they found while they were there. So you can start gathering the documents or start trying to make the, the changes so that you can comply. If you need more time, please look for the extension to comply form that's on our website.
Our next question comes from Nadav V. When an inspection is online virtual, will security footage need to be shown to the inspector via screen share?
We don't do virtual inspections, especially when we have to review security footage. So we will be there in the computer room, wherever you are. You have to show us exactly how it all works. We have to make sure that you have the storage capability, that your timestamps are correct. Sometimes the timestamp is 5 minutes off. You have to correct that. You have to calibrate it. Sometimes it's even like 10, 15 years off. Make sure that the date and the time is accurate. No, we won't do that digitally. We have to do that in person. And there are times when we might even ask you for footage on a certain day and from a certain camera. And you have to supply that to us. We do give you instructions to upload those to our public. We have a link that we will give you so you can upload that footage so that we can review it if we need to. But most definitely those will be in person.
Stephen R. asks, who has to sign into visitor logs?
Aaron, you went over this just now, right? And this is something that you find often.
Correct. So anyone visiting the establishment that is not an employee needs to sign in as a visitor. Anyone that's going into limited access areas, again, that's not an employee, you need to sign into limited access logs. So again, we're asking everyone who is not an employee, whether they're a vendor, whether they're a plumber, whether they're an IT guy, alarm guy, if they're not an employee of your business, they're not an owner of the business, they need to sign into your visitor log. Once they're inside your establishment, if they're going into limited access areas, and again, they're not employees, they're vendors, plumbers, IT guys, alarm personnel. If they're not an owner or an employee of the business, they need to sign it out into a limited access log as well. So it's very important, again, to most times people will sign into two different logs. One is, again, to get inside the business. The second log they will sign into will be a limited access log to get into limited access areas. Back to you, Rocky.
All right. Our next question comes from Gadget B. Does a speaker used for keeping mosquitoes away considered an outdoor speaker and therefore prohibited?
Speakers are prohibited. If the speaker is playing music, whether it's for mosquitoes or for people, they have to be removed.
Thanks, Rocky. The next question is also from Gajik. We have RV and car encampments all over our street, including sometimes with no access to sidewalks. Would we get fined for a minor violation in this case?
No, we would have to see the property. If you're having issues, maybe reach out to your council person, but the property is supposed to be kept in clean and free of debris and graffiti. So I understand some areas maybe it might be more difficult than others, but the regulation still applies. But yeah, I mean, if you want to send us pictures so we can, maybe help you better, you can send those to dcrcompliance@licity.org.
Thank you, Rocky. Our next question comes from Maximus S. Will a new compliance check be performed after an ownership transfer?
If it's a new business, I would say yes. I would say yes. If, things are changing. But if it's the same business and we've already conducted a compliance inspection, no, unless there's a complaint or something.
Our next question comes from JC. Regarding delivery age verification, what kind of specifications do we need to provide a copy of when asked by DCR?
Fred, can you take that?
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure. So regarding delivery age verification, what kind of specs or specifications do we need to provide a copy of when asked by DCR?
Okay. So when we're on site, what we want to do is see some kind of instruction manual, some type of thing that says like, hey, this is how this device works. This is the way in which it works. Like, either it's a swipe, some are like insert cards, or however your machine works. We're just looking to see what those specs are and some of the parameters within which it works. So a manual, any type of thing that has like information based around how it works. I've accepted manuals in the past.
Okay. From Dan J. Does premises mean the interior of the facility or the entire leased space, including exterior parking and employee break rooms, are with regards to cannabis consumption?
What cannabis consumption? Okay, first of all, business premises means everything under the control of the licensee. So parking, outside, inside, rec rooms, yes, we inspect it all. I heard something about a consumption lounge, and those are prohibited. So no consumption lounges, please.
Thank you. Our next question, and I think it's our last regarding inspections, comes from Dan J. Why do we have 90 days of 24 hours of continuous security camera footage and not just motion activated footage for compliance?
That is what the state code requires that. And we can't require less than what the state requires. So we're mirroring that regulation. But yeah, that is currently what is required.
Thank you, Rocky. As I said before, that was the last pre-submitted question regarding the inspections. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, we can, just to go back to that question, we can look into that if there's an exception to having cameras with just motion sensitivity. But right now it's supposed to be 24 hours. Believe me, for us, it's also, it's difficult because when we have to review footage, we have to review 24 hours worth of footage. So yeah, it is a lot of memory that we use, and you do have to keep it for 90 days. It seems like that was the last question. There are some questions on the Q&A. We can take those and post those answers online, unless, let me see, let me get content firms. Are independent contractors hired from temp firms allowed to work as an employee? I mean, if they're going to be your employee, how is that? Oh, because they're actually employees of the temp firm, not yours, right? That's probably the question. We'll look into that and get you an answer. Is it Nathan Natton? Okay, we'll answer these questions later. And we will post them online. Well, it looks like we reached the end of this webinar. You know, hopefully you guys got an understanding of, at least a basic understanding of what the compliance program entails, what staff will be doing out there. You know, they are, please, you know, be kind to my staff. They are out there, you know, helping, trying to help. We do believe in compliance through education. You know, we want to hear from you. You know, if there are things that you feel that you can, you know, if you can comply in a different way, suggest it. You know, we can look into it. Again, we're here to help you. We want you to be successful. So, you know, we look forward to working with you in the next few months and years. Well, with that, I want to say thank you, and I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you for attending.